The Art of No, a Stoic approach to focus and energy management, reclaiming your power through ancient wisdom. In an age of endless demands and infinite distractions, the ability to say no has become a revolutionary act. Yet this is not merely a modern self-help concept. It's a fundamental principle rooted in ancient Stoic philosophy that can transform how we manage our energy, maintain our focus, and live with intention. The Stoics understood something profound. Saying no isn't about rejection, it's about protection of what matters most. Chapter 1. The Stoic Foundation of Refusal. The ancient Stoics viewed life through the lens of what they could and couldn't control. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We should accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." This wisdom extends directly to how we respond to requests, obligations, and opportunities that compete for our attention. Stoic philosophy teaches us that saying no requires all four cardinal virtues. Self-discipline helps us resist the indulgence of saying yes out of fear of missing out. Courage enables us to face the discomfort that comes with potentially disappointing others. Justice ensures we're being fair to ourselves and others by not committing half-heartedly to something we cannot fully support. Finally, wisdom guides us in discerning when a request genuinely cannot be turned down versus when we're simply defaulting to yes out of habit. The Stoics recognized that our default response shapes our entire life trajectory. When we constantly say yes without deliberation, we become slaves to other people's agendas rather than architects of our own purpose. This isn't selfishness, it's self-stewardship, a fundamental responsibility we have to ourselves and, ultimately, to those we serve best when we're operating from our highest capacity. Chapter 2. The Philosophy of Focus and Energy Flow. Modern life coach Tony Robbins captured an ancient truth when he said, "Where focus goes, energy flows." This principle reveals why saying no is so crucial. Every yes we give dilutes our capacity to excel at what truly matters. The Stoics understood this intuitively, recognizing that our attention and energy are finite resources that must be carefully managed. Consider the metaphor of a magnifying glass focusing sunlight. Scattered light warms, but focused light ignites. Similarly, when we scatter our energy across countless commitments and distractions, we might feel busy, but we rarely achieve breakthrough results. The focused beam of our concentrated energy, however, can accomplish what seemed impossible. Steve Jobs, though not a Stoic, embodied this principle when he said, "Focusing is about saying no." He understood that true focus isn't about concentrating on many things simultaneously, it's about elimination. It's about having the courage to say no to good opportunities so that we can say an enthusiastic yes to great ones. This counterintuitive approach to focus challenges our conventional wisdom that more opportunities equal more success. The Stoics would argue that this selective focus is a form of wisdom in action. When we say yes to everything, we're essentially saying that we cannot distinguish between what's important and what's merely urgent, between what serves our highest purpose and what merely fills our calendar. Chapter 3. The Psychology of Default Responses. Most people develop a default response to requests, and unfortunately, that default is often yes. This automatic agreement stems from various fears: fear of missing out, fear of disappointing others, fear of being seen as unhelpful or difficult. But the Stoics teach us to examine these fears and recognize them as externals, things outside our control that shouldn't dictate our choices. Seneca wrote extensively about how we waste our most precious resource, time. He observed that while we carefully guard our material possessions, we carelessly give away our time to anyone who asks. No person hands out their money to passers-by, but to how many do each of us hand out our lives? We're tight-fisted with property and money, yet think too little of wasting time, the one thing about which we should all be the toughest misers. This tendency to default to yes creates what psychologists call invisible clutter, the accumulation of unnecessary commitments and relationships that drain our energy without providing meaningful return. Just as physical clutter clutters our space, commitment clutter clutters our capacity for deep work, meaningful relationships, and personal growth. The solution lies in consciously shifting our default from yes to a thoughtful pause. Instead of immediately agreeing, we can buy ourselves time with responses like, "Let me check my calendar and get back to you," or "Let me think about it." This simple shift creates space for wisdom to operate, rather than fear. Chapter 4. Boundaries as Acts of Virtue. Saying no is fundamentally about setting boundaries, and boundaries are acts of virtue. When we fail to set clear limits on our time and energy, we're not being generous. We're being unjust to ourselves and others. A half-hearted yes is often worse than an honest no, because it takes up space that could be filled by someone who is genuinely enthusiastic about the opportunity. Setting boundaries requires profound self-knowledge. We must understand who we are, what we value, and what we're trying to accomplish. Without this foundation, every request feels equally valid, and we lose the ability to discriminate between what serves our purpose and what merely serves our ego or our fears. The Stoics emphasized that we have a responsibility to ourselves that we cannot delegate to others. Just as a captain must protect their ship's resources for the journey ahead, we must protect our mental and emotional resources for the work that only we can do. This isn't selfish. It's responsible stewardship of our unique gifts and limited time. Healthy boundaries also improve our relationships. When we're clear about our limits, others know what to expect from us. They learn to respect our time because we respect it ourselves. Paradoxically, being selective about when we say yes makes our yes more valuable and meaningful. Chapter 5. The Liberation of Selective Commitment. The ultimate goal of mastering the art of no isn't to become antisocial or unhelpful. It is to become more helpful by being more selective. When we say no to the things that don't align with our values and capabilities, we create space to say an enthusiastic hell yeah to the things that do. This selective approach to commitment has profound psychological benefits. It reduces stress by preventing overcommitment, increases our sense of control over our lives, and boosts our confidence as we learn to trust our own judgment over others' expectations. Each time we honor our boundaries, we reinforce our self-respect and teach others to respect us as well. The Stoics understood that this kind of selectivity requires courage. The courage to be disliked, to be seen as difficult, or to miss out on something that might have been good in order to preserve space for something that could be great. This courage isn't reckless. It's calculated. It's based on a clear understanding of our priorities and the recognition that we cannot serve everyone without failing to serve anyone well. Moreover, learning to say no gracefully is itself a skill that improves with practice. The Stoics were practical philosophers who believed in preparing for life's challenges through deliberate practice. Just as we might rehearse difficult conversations or practice skills we want to develop, we can practice saying no in low-stakes situations to build our confidence for when it really matters. Chapter 6. Practical Wisdom for Daily Application. The Stoic approach to saying no isn't about rigid rules, but about developing practical wisdom that can be applied to each unique situation. This wisdom begins with a simple question that Marcus Aurelius might have asked. Is this necessary? Not just necessary for someone else, but necessary for you, your growth, your relationships, and your ability to contribute meaningfully to the world. When faced with a request, we can apply the hell yeah or no principle. If we're not feeling genuinely excited about an opportunity, if it doesn't align with our current priorities, or if saying yes would compromise our ability to excel at our existing commitments, then the answer should be no. This isn't perfectionism, it's purposefulness. It's also helpful to remember that saying no is often saying yes to something else. When we decline one invitation, we're saying yes to rest, to family time, to working on our craft, or to being fully present for the commitments we've already made. Every no creates space for something that might be more important. The Stoics also teach us to examine our motivations for saying yes. Are we agreeing because we genuinely want to help and have the capacity to do so well? Or are we saying yes out of guilt, fear, or a misguided sense of obligation? Understanding our motivations helps us respond from wisdom rather than reactivity. Conclusion: the power of purposeful refusal. The art of saying no is ultimately about taking responsibility for our lives. It's about recognizing that every yes we give shapes who we become and how we show up in the world. The Stoics understood that we cannot control what others ask of us, but we can control how we respond. This control, this ability to choose our responses based on our values rather than our fears, is perhaps the most fundamental freedom we possess. Mastering this art doesn't happen overnight. It requires practice, self-reflection, and the occasional uncomfortable conversation. But the payoff is immense. A life lived with intention rather than reaction, relationships built on mutual respect rather than resentment, and the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing we're using our limited time and energy in service of what matters most. The ancient Stoics faced the same fundamental challenge we face today: how to live well in a world full of competing demands. Their answer was elegant in its simplicity. Focus on what you can control, act according to your values, and have the courage to say no to anything that takes you away from your path. In mastering the art of no, we master the art of living deliberately.